Hi there. I wanted to do something a little bit different in this video because yes, there are lots of things here that relate to how to play music better. But frankly, I just wanted to reflect a little bit on my recent experience at Wimbledon because it was pretty special for me. In fact, the last time I went to Wimbledon before this was 20 years ago, I think. And I queued out overnight in the rain. It rained all night. Got in the next day, great seats, and it rained all day again, and I saw nothing. So that's a story for another time, but it's one of the reasons why actually I was pretty excited to go this time. And I was keeping an eye out for just whatever I could see that related to music, because it's such a great opportunity seeing all these great sports stars on the big stage. How do they perform? What can we take away? And I've got a lot of things that I want to share with you that just stuck out for me and see if any of them are helpful for you as well. And the first thing was just the atmosphere that you get there. And I'm not even talking about inside the stadium with the big matches going, because I was lucky enough to get seats on number 1 court for men's quarterfinals, so a pretty big day. But frankly, just the buzz around the grounds, walking around, seeing the practice courts, just the shops, all the people there, just a huge buzz, huge energy, and reminds me of just how great these events are. And it really reminded me that you get exactly the same thing with live music as well. So I just want to encourage you to get involved in live music a little bit more, whether that's going out and listening to things, whether it's going out and playing more, whether it's going out and playing for the first time if you've been a little bit reticent to do that. You're missing out on so much if you don't connect to what happens when people are there as a group, either playing or listening to music live. It's a wonderful thing, and it just felt great to be reminded of how important that is, and that it's not just that moment of performance, that tiny one bit of music itself, but it's the whole thing about it. It's the whole event, that whole experience. Really great to connect to that a little bit more, and I'm certainly planning to get out and see a few more things afterwards. And then looking at some of the practice courts when the players were warming up reminded me of the importance of the things that you don't see. Because of course, when a match is about to start, the players come out onto court and they hit a few balls for a couple of minutes and they're straight into it. And it can seem like, well, that's their warm-up, this is all they're doing, and it's all about the match. But actually, you know that before that, they've probably spent an hour or so on a practice court a little bit earlier in the day, really getting warmed up. And then, of course, there's the weeks and months of training and practice that has gone into getting them ready for this tournament in the first place. And it's really easy to get distracted in music as well by it's all about what happens in that little time that we're performing, and forget about all the work that's gone into it. And whether the performance is good or bad, that's just a huge part of it. And we need to make sure we do it, but to celebrate what we've put into it, all the effort we've put in. And equally, when it gets to that time to play, just know that you've done the work. And don't feel it's all about what happens now. You're not on your own with that moment defining you one way or another. There's a whole body of work before you to get there, and that's all equally valid too. And the next thing that really stuck with me was watching how even the greatest players have to deal with bad patches, with disappointment, and how to manage that well. So I was watching Rafael Nadal in one of the quarterfinals, and he was playing some incredible tennis. I tell you, it's one thing to watch it on television, it's another to see it live. But equally, there were patches he went through where he really wasn't playing that well. And it's a great reminder that it happens to all of us. So don't get stressed if you feel I'm not having a good day or whatever. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. The best have these as well. And more than that, it's how you react to it. And I noticed that Rafa, he didn't panic. He didn't lose belief. He was always totally confident that he'd come out the other side. But what he didn't do either was he didn't force it. He didn't try and go for too much. He didn't try and make himself suddenly play brilliant again. He was patient. He did what he knew he needed to do. He just did the processes that he knew were going to work out for him and trusted that when the time was right, he'd come out the other side. And sure enough, he did. A few games later, he was back to playing brilliantly again. A couple of sets later, a little rough patch. But again, he didn't lose belief. He didn't force it. He rode it out and he went through it and came back stronger than ever. And that's just such a great attitude to have to it. And we can all benefit from that as musicians. Not feeling there's something wrong with us when it's not going quite so well. Not losing belief, but not forcing our way through it artificially. Just having patience and trust that we're going to come out the other side and start playing well again. And I was also really impressed by the control of emotions from everyone that I saw there. It was, if you didn't know what you were watching, you would not think this was Grand Slam quarterfinals with huge amounts resting on it. The players were so calm and so focused, just concentrating on what they were doing with the tennis. Really, most of the time, very little emotion shown. And this was particularly brought home to me at the end of the first match that I watched, where Roberto Bautista Agut had won it. And all of a sudden, there was this huge celebration, a real roar, fist pump, all that sort of stuff. And he'd been showing nothing of this before. It was a real fantastic reminder to me that it wasn't that he didn't care. He wasn't like he was some mindless automaton who had just got rid of all feelings and, some superhuman being, almost like a robot. No, he did want to win. This was really important to him. It was a big match for him. It was a huge thing. But while he was playing, he had the skill and the ability to just put those emotions to one side for a moment because they were not serving him to play his best. But once it was done, out they came, he celebrated, he was totally in it, and it was great to see. But again, a real lesson for all of us. It's usually not helpful to get really caught up in the emotion. Am I playing well? Am I playing badly? Am I winning or losing, in tennis, or achieving the level that I think I should or not in music? But the more that you can distance yourself from that, and absolutely let yourself feel satisfied or disappointed afterwards, but in the moment, in the performance, it's probably not going to help that much. So I found that really fascinating. And finally, there's the fact that not everything goes to plan, and even the best can crack under pressure. So if you followed some of my stuff, you'll know that one of the things I'm big on is having a little pre-performance routine before you start to play, just to get you into exactly the right frame of mind so that you get off to a great start. And I love watching this in tennis because before every point, certainly before the serve, but for the good players, the return as well, they will do exactly the same thing each time. It's just so they've got this consistent thing that gets them in the right place, gets them in the right frame of mind before they play the point. And so I was geekishly counting the number of bounces on the tennis balls, seeing what other movements they make to sort of move the clothes around, all those sorts of things. And I noticed towards the end of the first match, so this guy Pella was coming up to the point where he was getting close to losing. And he'd had a very consistent pre-performance routine before his serve, bouncing the ball 5 times, I think it was. And then I noticed towards the end, sometimes there was a 4 bounce in there. Sometimes there was a 6 bounce in there. And you could see that the pressure was getting to him and he wasn't going through the motions quite the same way each time. And first of all, again, a nice reminder that pressure does things to people. You shouldn't be ashamed if you show up slightly differently when the heat is really on. But also, it reminded me of just how important it is to do the work in advance. It's much harder to do all these things, whether it's the technical aspect of playing, the physical motions, or those mental thoughts that you know are going to give you the best performance. Whichever it is, much harder to do under pressure than when conditions are easy. So you need to put in the work when things are easy, when you've got a chance to do it, to really ingrain it, to make it absolutely solid, so that when that pressure situation comes along, you can do it. It still sticks there. You've done the training ahead of time and you can just rely on it. So a great reminder to me and to all of you guys to stick with doing the training and to do perhaps more on all these things, both technical and mental, than you think you need to, because when the big situation comes along, it's going to be harder. and you kind of want that extra reserve in your tank so that you can still cope with it. So there you go, a few random thoughts and hopefully some insights just inspired by my recent visit to Wimbledon. If you found it interesting, I'd love it if you let me know, just drop a comment below. And if you did find it interesting, then I'd definitely recommend checking out my video on what playing tennis has taught me about playing music next. And if you'd like the special practice and performance tips that I only share with subscribers, then head on over to Play in the Zone and sign up for the emails. They're free. I've been Mark Morley-Fletcher. Thanks so much for watching. Please click below to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And while you're down there, why not hit the share button to pass this on to other musicians? Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.